One of the reasons why I think it takes so long for people to get better at writing and for people to improve the craft is that writing, kind of like most forms of art, is a difficult form of skill developing because there is no real feedback mechanism. When it comes to most skills and developing most techniques in a certain area, there's often a feedback mechanism to help you improve because there tends to be a correct answer. This is something I've kind of gained just from playing chess. If you've been seeing this on my some of the videos on my channel here, chess is a much easier game to figure out than it is to learn how to write because there's a winner and a loser. You can go back and you can watch your games and you can figure out, okay, so I did this wrong. Next time I shouldn't make this mistake. With writing, there's not really a right or wrong. There are general principles, general guidelines, and you can, subjectively read a piece of work and can kind of get a sense that it's not particularly good or that it is good. But there's not a whole lot of direct feedback. You can't just write something, compare it to something else, and then go, oh, okay, I made a mistake here. Next time I can't do this. Next time I shouldn't do this. Even if you have a critique group, often you're not necessarily getting specific prescriptive advice. And even if you are getting prescriptive advice on your piece, it's not universal. It just happens to be what's not working for that particular piece. It's only over time that you kind of get a sense of, okay, so most good writing doesn't necessarily do this, and when the rule of this writing is broken, the authors that break this rule, they tend to do it, and it tends to look this way. It's very, again, it's very conceptual. None of it is hard and fast, and there's not a whole lot of kind of straightforwardness in terms of response and correction. And I'm finding this now, like how frustrating it's getting right now with my writing, where I'm going through, I'm making these small corrections, these smaller changes, making these just these sort of sentence by sentence corrections here, and they're better. The sentences look a little bit better, but something is still feeling off. When I'm writing, it's still not connecting. Maybe it meanders too much. Maybe it's too much a slice of life, this beginning that I've written. As much as I introduced the conflict early on, the end of the first act doesn't really occur till like page 50 or so, which out of a 375 page book, something like that, I think that's what it is right now, double spaced. Yeah, page 50 is fine. Like in your head, you're like, oh, that's not bad to the first act to end right there, because it's not, and yet I feel like the reader is not going to be as engaged because the beginning tends to be slow. It tends to be like almost like Moby Dick, where the first I don't think he even gets on the boat till after, like, I think the 6th chapter. I don't think he even get to the boat at that point. So it's like 6 chapters of just like waiting and leading up to it, and so the same thing here. So there's a bit of a fear that perhaps the reader, or more directly the agent that I query, might find this work to be a bit too slow to start with, a bit too much of a slice of life, and not enough focusing on just pushing forward and getting to kind of the immediate event that sets up the ending of the first act. And so that's something I've been grappling with here, is just that lack of feedback, right? That lack of having a direct yes or no answer for this. And even if I give it to a CP, and I've had CPs that have looked at this before, and they were to say, yeah, you should cut this, you should speed up, you should be hitting act 1 or the end of the first act sooner than that. Even if that were to be true, I don't know if I would necessarily listen anyways, right? Because even with the feedback from the people, it's still a subjective art. It's still something where you sort of have to kind of exert your own opinion on what your work to be, and it would be very difficult for me to make that change. Just to be honest here, it might in fact be the right thing. It might be, but without any kind of without an environment where it's clear cut, where there's a yes and no, a black and white answer, where there is a pretty steadfast rule against this, it becomes hard. Like I mentioned, Moby Dick kind of has the same sort of slow beginning, and that's one of the one of the greatest works of potentially of literature there. Many people tend to find that book boring, but it's celebrated, and so you see that exception. You see that exception maybe to the rule. You start thinking of other books that are a bit slower to begin, and you go, well, all right, maybe books like that. Maybe it works as it is, and that's where the challenge comes in. That's again where you have to sort of do an analysis. Is your work good enough to justify that? And it's difficult because I would never say my work's as good as Melville, obviously, but is my work good enough to pull this off? Is what I've written well enough to justify keeping it? Is there enough engagement in sort of the slow beginning and sort of the slice of life? Is there enough interesting engagement that the reader will stay with it until page 50, when the action really starts to happen? Again, a lot of questions, but again, there's no direct feedback mechanism to kind of figure it out, to study. It's art and it's subjective, and that's often the problem. And so, obviously, today just went through and made these corrections. Thank goodness for kind of a rainy day. I was supposed to go to a barbecue today, but it got canceled because of the rain, so it gave me more time to sit here and kind of work at this. Hoping that maybe at some point here in the next couple of weeks, I might have maybe these first few 50 pages maybe redone altogether. I know I wanted to get the last 50 pages rewritten as well. I don't think it's going to happen. I think this month is going to be all the first 50 pages, because again, this matters, and again, the more perfect I can get these first 50 pages, the better my entire venture ends up being. All right, but I'm starting to ramble, so I'm going to cut it off here. I'll be back tomorrow.